Welcome into a Water Break Wednesday presented by Crown Royal. My name's Drew Dougherty, and I am joined by my good pal, Deepi Sidhu. We're so happy that you are with us. Please send in those questions. We want to answer them. We want to interact with you and talk with you. And Deepi, it's great to see you. We're in that sweet spot between Christmas and New Year's. There's still no garland right here around the edge of the screen, which is kind of a disappointment. Sorry for that. We have other people to blame for that. But some news just broke. The Texans are adding a cavalcade of players back to the roster from the COVID list, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think on top of Christmas and New Year's, this is a nice little surprise, nice little midweek surprise. We sort of had a hint of it coming earlier because we walked out to practice, which was actually inside the stadium, and it was a full practice. I saw faces that I hadn't seen in a while. And so it left me pretty optimistic that we'd get a lot of players back from the COVID reserve list. We had 19 players from the active roster on that list, and you're getting most of those players back, a lot of starters, which will be huge when the Texans have to take on the 49ers up in San Francisco.
Yeah, you get your starting center, Justin Britt, back. Wide receiver Brandon Cooks is the biggest name of them all. He's back off the list. Kicker Kaimi Fairbairn returns. Jonathan Grenard, who had been your best defensive player for most of the season, he's off the list. Kamu Grugier-Hill, also a breakthrough guy this year for you at linebacker, is off of it. Neville Hewitt, who's filled in very admirably at the linebacker spot very recently. Those are some of the big names. Roy Lopez, the rookie defensive lineman, he's off of it too. So good news. Glad they're back. Going to see how they assimilate with what you saw last Sunday, because what we saw last Sunday, Deepi, was excellent. It's the best game the Texans played all year. They did it against a team that they had their losses too, but it was a wash when it came to who they were missing and who the Texans were missing. And the Texans dominated them. I mean, they played great football. We saw excellent work there from the quarterback, Davis Mills. The defense came up with 3 takeaways. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. You know, the Texans and the Chargers combined to punt just one time the entire game. They were getting after it, had a lot of fun. I had fun covering that game, and I know you did too.
Well, I think the biggest surprise was the fact that you mentioned the starters that were out for the Chargers. The Texans had a sheer volume of players that were out. We've never covered a game where there've been that many starters missing due to COVID. So I know things are changing, times are changing, and every team is dealing with these sort of things. But you're facing one of the top offenses in the NFL, and the Texans are not having one of the greatest seasons, but your offense really turns it on. Davis Mills has one of his best games of the season. Rex Burkhead scores 2 touchdowns, and this is all without Brandon Cooks on offense. You finally get your ground game going again. And then you get 3 takeaways on defense, like you mentioned, from 2 guys that were not starters. They had to step up in the place of other guys, Tapier Thomas and Jonathan Owens, who got his first start in Jacksonville. He got his first interception and his first career fumble recovery in the same game. So it was a lot of fun, not just because it was a win, but because of the guys that stepped up and had big performances as well. Drew, you listed off a laundry list of players that make it back onto the active roster. A few names to note that have not made it back. And of course, this could change between now and Sunday because the NFL has changed its rules, which may be a big part in why you see so many players come back. Now you only have to quarantine for 5 days, 5-day isolation period instead of the 10. But so far, the players that you're going to need to watch for the rest of the week, guys like Titus Howard, Lonnie Johnson. David Johnson was just placed on the reserve COVID list, so I wouldn't expect to see him back anytime soon. And then 2 guys that went on that COVID list, defensive lineman Rondell Carter, and then wide receiver Chris Moore went on that list. But it is good to have the rest of the guys back. And then Dominic Everly, who kicked for Kaimi Fairbairn, he's on the practice squad COVID list. So it's actually really fortunate that you get Kaimi back for this game.
And I don't think that guy didn't get much notoriety, but he came out of nowhere, signed earlier in the week, and his first field goal attempt is a 50-yarder, and he bangs that through. That's pretty good stuff there for a first time in the NFL. Really amazing. Okay, we're going to take questions now, but right before we do, COVID aside, a couple guys in Cole Toner and Philip Dorsett go on IR. So unfortunately for them, their season is done. Really unfortunate because Dorsett, he was making some plays for you at wide receiver, but he is signed through the next year. So the Texans are going to have him around, and he's going to be part of the mix in the competition, catching passes next year. And I think that's a good thing. Okay. Joe wants us to know that he is so happy for Nico Collins's first TD, and I am too. And the more I
Mhm.
look back at that and the situation, it's like, ooh, Nico might have been served, and the Texans as a team might have been better served just hitting the ground before he scored. But how are you going to do that when you got your first TD in front of you and you got 6 points and making it a two-score game in front of you? That was a heck of a call there by Davis Mills to recognize what was in front of him, because that was a run play. That was a design run play, and he kind of calls out of it and goes to Nico. So much fun to see, because we'd been hearing about how the Texans had wanted to get Nico his first touchdown for quite some time.
Yeah, Tim Kelly talked about it a few weeks ago, and we saw Nico make some big catches. He came close a couple of times. There were a couple flags, a couple penalties that reversed some of the touchdown calls earlier in the season. So he came so close, had touchdowns taken away, and then he finally gets the touchdown against the Chargers. But Drew, I always hear people say that, like, oh, he would have been better served to not go for the end zone. You preserve some clock. I have to think that for NFL players, that's got to be the hardest thing in the world to do,
Yeah.
to not score when you've got just grass in front of you. I have to think that has to go against every basic instinct in your body to not score. And you know what? I'm always happy when they do score, because it just adds a little bit more padding to the scoreboard and puts the game a little bit further out of reach for the Chargers.
Yeah, you don't score 40 points if he doesn't get into the end zone, because what happens is you run up the clock. I mean, they'd used up their final timeout. He goes down there and they go to the 2-minute warning, and then you can basically kneel on it in victory formation. But it was more fun seeing the touchdown, and
Got
that
to do
made
victory
it
formation anyway, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and Tavir Thomas got to pick off a pass, so I was for it. German Texan has a good one. What do you think will happen to German-born kicker Dominic Eberle? Will Fairbairn play on Sunday? It's a great question, and it's perfect because, yes, Eberle was born in Nuremberg, Germany. He grew up and played his high school ball in Redondo Beach, California, and then went on to Utah State. But what a heck of a first game in the NFL for that guy. I think if Fairbairn's healthy enough, he's going to be the guy that kicks, but it's not because Eberle performed poorly. It's not one of those things. It's just because Fairbairn had been kicking really well, had drilled a pair of 50-yarders plus a 61-yarder the week before. And, it's tough to take away a guy's starting job when you do that. But Eberle acquitted himself very, very well, Deepi.
I love that German Texan asked this question, because I actually thought of German Texan
It's a good question. Yeah.
when we saw Eberle's name pop up on the roster. Yeah, I mean, to have your first NFL field goal be over 50 yards, and then he had a second attempt, which I think that for sure would have been some sort of record. I think I wouldn't worry about Eberle. I think he's going to get a gig in the NFL, especially with everything going on with COVID. Kickers get placed on the COVID reserve list. He was actually practice squad guy for the Panthers, and the Texans ended up signing Joey Sly earlier in the year when Kaimi was hurt. I think that he's put his film out there. Eberle has, and I think he's going to get a gig with someone else. I think he did some really good things for himself in making that 50-yarder or 51-yarder, whatever it was. And he was a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to cover. But yeah, I think Kaimi, if all goes well, he's off that reserve COVID list. So I would imagine that means he's good enough to play on Sunday.
Yeah, probably going to be Kaimi doing the kicking. Okay, Joe has one. It's a good one. Are you impressed with the rookies this year? And yes, I am. There's 5 drafted rookies, and then there have been a few guys who have come this way via free agency who were not drafted. But yeah, I am impressed with what the rookies have done. The first one that the Texans took was Davis Mills, and we saw, we've seen really good signs from him since he got benched in the middle of the year. He's gotten a lot of playing time, and now he's talking about, and his teammates and his coaches are talking about, a lot of the pre-snap adjustments he's making. That's something you want to see. That's a growth you want to see. So how's it going to look when he's going against Bosa and this 49ers defense this Sunday on the road? Another good test. I can't wait to see what he's doing, but he's played a lot and you've gotten some production out of him. And then the other guys like Roy Lopez has almost started every game this year, aside from, week 1 and then last weekend. Nico Collins catching his first touchdown, being somebody that clearly has a future in this offense. Brevin Jordan, you can say the same about him. Heck of a guy after the catch and really very, very dependable on third down. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Garrett Wallow has gotten significant playing time the last 3 weeks on defense, in addition to the significant playing time he's gotten on special teams. You've really hit and gotten a lot of production out of these guys in very, very short order. And what do we hear from Nick Caserio? Year 1, to year 2 is when you see a great leap. So perhaps even better things are ahead for this rookie class.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the underlying storylines that we're going to talk a lot about in the offseason. Nick Caserio's first draft as Texans general manager, 5 draft picks, and you get big production from all 5 of your draft picks this year. And I think Davis Mills is the one that was the big question mark 3rd round pick. You see all the quarterbacks that have gone before him. I mean, he's held his own. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick. Davis outperformed him in that game against the Jaguars. And then on Sunday, he could go against Trey Lance, number 2 overall pick. So, or number 3 overall pick, sorry. And then, he played against the Patriots, Mac Jones, earlier in the year as well. So I think just seeing what he's able to do, and especially in these last few games, these last few wins, it takes a little bit of pressure off for next year's draft class, which I think that's the biggest benefit of seeing some of these rookies play. You sort of know what you have. You know that you can count on these guys, and you expect to see even more production in year 2. And the connection between the rookies, how about Davis Mills to Brevin Jordan or Davis Mills to Nico Collins on 3rd down? I mean, they have really stepped up. And I don't really remember a draft class where you see so many guys really contribute and start games and play so well, especially here in some of these games in December. And I don't even talk about the defensive guys. Drew, you mentioned them, Roy Lopez and Garrett Wallow, also off to tremendous starts in their NFL careers.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like early on he's hit on all 5 of them. And I'm not saying you've got 5 Pro Bowlers, but I'm saying you got 5 guys that you can rely upon and, are going to be important parts of your future. And that's a win, I think. And what's he going to do when he has a 1st rounder and a 2nd rounder and 2 third rounders like he does this year, in addition to a 4th, 3 6s, and a 7th? And are there any more trades for draft picks that we will see before the draft? There could be, but so far, knock on wood, so good. All right, Deepi, that's going to do it for this Water Break Wednesday. Good stuff from you as always. Great stuff from Amanda Caffey and Tyler Marcotte, like they do every single day. So thank you to them. Merry Christmas to you all belatedly, and a very happy New Year. We're going to do this again next Wednesday in 2022. Until then, go Texans.